Hello and welcome to this episode of Loving the Journey. I'm Donna Cundy. Today I'm joined by Leo Young. Leo is a podcaster and an entrepreneur. And a little bit about Leo before we jump in and learn and have the conversation. Leo Young is the founder of Cornell Communities, a real estate firm revitalizing manufactured housing communities across 8 states. He leads more than 500 affordable housing units and over $30 million in assets while delivering strong, consistent returns for his investors. Before launching Cornell Communities, Leo worked in private equity and was the top regional salesperson at Tesla. Today, he helps audiences understand the real story behind affordable housing, entrepreneurship under pressure, and building systems at scale. And I know we're going to have a great conversation. So welcome, Leo. It's great to have you.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Donna. Looking forward to it.
Yes. And so, Leo, as a podcaster, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is doing all of the things that our listeners are doing, I'm always curious about origin stories. So
Mhm.
why did you decide to get behind the microphone and create the not loving the journey, that's mine, creating the journey with
Yeah,
Leo Young podcast. Tell us about that.
sure. So the journey is really take two of my podcasting attempts. I had another podcast before during COVID that was more talk show esque. There was like a lot of prepared questions, but the journey is more so just an unfiltered look behind other successful entrepreneurs. Um, it really came about because I was curious, first off, to hear the story behind other successful entrepreneurs because I think we like to celebrate a lot of accomplishments on social media. And like being an entrepreneur myself, I know how hard it is and what work needs to be done behind the scenes to make it happen. So I wanted to uncover some of that, and the guests were obviously happy to share because they felt the same way. They're like, "Yeah, this isn't easy. Like I earned every single, I earned my spot here. I didn't just luck into it. So here's kind of what I had to overcome." So then started the podcast. Had some great people on, and I think really just sharing the insights with the audience, inspiring them, and then me myself, I think just getting better at articulating certain points and asking questions. And right now it's an unscripted podcast where there's next to no preparation. I just go into it and we just have a candid conversation.
I love that. And so is your podcast an extension of your real estate, or is it just any kind of a business owner? Like, how does that
Any
work?
kind. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I see content and marketing more of a hobby, because my daytime job, so to speak, is real estate, is investments. I talk to investors, I operate commercial
Uh,
properties with my team and stuff. It takes a lot. I mean, like I work 7 days a week, but I always enjoy content and like putting good stuff out there, helping people, even if it's just one person. I think sort of correcting the mistakes I see out on being blasted all over the place. So just doing my part, and I enjoy doing it.
I love that. It's interesting to hear that you're talking about there's your business, and then the marketing and content creation is kind of a side hobby. It sounds like,
Yeah,
right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I got to create content, I got to do this, I got it for
yeah,
my business. And so how do they complement each other then? How do you find the time for the hobby?
yeah. So it's not entirely separate. I think a lot of the content, I mean, even the topics that we cover on the podcast go into entrepreneurship, investing, and a lot of our investors are indeed successful business owners. They get it.
Mm,
And,
mhm.
it helps them see that, okay, this guy's the real deal. He knows what he's talking about. He's running a real business and he's not just some like marketing guy. Um, so I think that is important to be able to manage your time effectively enough to be able to do things like this. But also, I see it as a creative outlet.
Mm,
I think the conventional marketing knowledge of, call it, the 2010s to 2020 is like you are like the riches are in the niches, like you have to just like be one dimensional on here. But I think as we're seeing kind of social media evolve from being social media to an entertainment platform, because really like Facebook, Google, like they're entertainment platforms. These are media companies selling ad spots, and like that's why they're making money hand
Mhm.
over fist. It's not in like, hey, who's like friends with who. That doesn't make money. Um, but they want to do that. So getting better at it. So the podcast side helps me make better content for investors on the business side, and so forth. So I think it's all connected. You are your niche. I think that's what people need to know.
Hmm. I love that, and uh, I'm taking notes. I'm going to go back and listen to the recording on what you just said about social media. That was the first time I've
Yeah.
heard somebody put it that way.
Mm,
That's a real big eye opener right there. I'll tell you.
yeah.
But also to be able to show up and do something that you enjoy, talking to people that you're getting to meet, positions you. This is the first of the whys behind the podcast that I don't know if it's a byproduct for you, but it definitely is something that positions you as an expert in your field without having to say I'm an expert in my field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. I just thought of this, but so the one skill, right? I think that's super important now. You'll hear people talking about AI. Like, okay, I should do more AI. I should build my personal brand more. I think it all boils down to leverage, right? Because like the world's getting more and more noisy. There's like more content out there. So like, how do you stand apart? You stand apart by making good content that's valuable to people, because people resonate with that, and that's how you get leverage. When you make great content, like hundreds, thousands of people see it, as opposed to like, I don't know, like on TikTok, they talk about the 300 view jail, right? Just like your content gets stuck there. So getting better at making content comes from repetition. So, for me, like my goals of the podcast, honestly, fundamentally, there is no goal. Like I want to do it to get the repetition in. I
Mm,
want to learn by taking action and not just try to concoct some sort of theory and like a whole game plan before going into it. And what I found by going into it, and like I think must have done like 30 episodes by now in like 6 months. It's that
fantastic.
like, yeah, it's that I get to connect with some really, really bright people, and like we just find ways to help each other. I
Mhm.
think that the world's really great like that. We want to connect each other, help each other grow. And yeah, being able to do that, and then also getting better at making content so I can deliver more value to people.
Mm. Yeah, delivering value, connecting with people, that's a great focus on things. I just recently had seen where even if you think that you're becoming that influencer, reaching beyond that 300 on TikTok, you don't know if they're humans or not.
Hmm.
Cuz the bots are showing up as
Yeah.
likes. The bots are showing up even sometimes as comments. The bots
Yeah.
are showing up as all these things, and I love your focus on human connection
Yeah.
and the humanness of doing a podcast, doing an interview, talking and amplifying the voices of really neat people.
Yeah, and to take it a step further too, part of the transition between like the entertainment platforms as we're seeing right now is that vanity metrics mean a lot less now. It doesn't matter how many views you get, doesn't matter like how many likes you get, because a lot of it are bots. Like you'll see on a lot of videos, it's like, oh, thank you so and so, and they're like, oh, you changed my life, and it turns out it's like some day trader paying for some bots to like highlight them, or like some author like paying for bots to market their books and stuff. Like you'll see it all over YouTube, all over TikTok, everything. And what matters is that you're putting out good enough content that a transaction happens.
Mm,
Transaction meaning like a listener is compelled enough to like want to get to know you. They want to work with you because they're like, wow, like I've gotten so much value. Like this guy knows his stuff. The Alex Hormozy case study, right? He sold $100 million worth of books, last summer, because he just gave value over value over value. Like his podcast, his YouTube and stuff. It's always like, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, like the jab, jab, jab. It's like
mm,
value, value, value without asking for it. And then when that day come, people are like, yeah, I'm happy to spend $6,000 for nothing. A lot of people were upset at like what the product was, but they gave him the money anyways. They're like, hey, I've gotten over $6,000 worth of value from this guy. I'm happy to write you a check.
Hmm. Yeah, and you just can't fake you can't fake humanness on a podcast. You can't fake
Yeah.
human when you talk about content creation because there's a lot of fake I don't want to say fake content, but there's AI
Just like
generated.
shallow. Yeah,
Yeah.
shallow, AI generated and stuff. I think that's also why, like, when I relaunched the podcast, I was like, I do not want this to be scripted at all because, like,
Mm,
when it's scripted, it just feels fake. Like what you said. It's not like we're fake people, but it's like it doesn't get at the true raw authenticity. It doesn't feel like I'm sitting across you having a beer, right? That's what we
yeah.
want, or
Mhm.
coffee. Whatever you're into.
Wine.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, the humanness of it all, that's a really great and you could be going into a topic on your business,
Mhm.
on the real estate and maybe add a lot of value and add some to it, but also I think the reach, if you're people are really craving that humanness, and so to be able to just sprinkle your expertise in there amongst the conversation of more than just that, you know, that's
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you're talking to someone, like their passions and their expertise just naturally come out. When you're I don't know if you're the same way, but when I'm hanging out with a dermatologist, I'm going to ask him all my skincare questions. Yeah, and the same way, people look at me, they're like, okay, this guy knows real estate. He runs an investment firm, so like let me ask him, like, is this a good market, blah blah blah. And like,
yeah,
it just comes out.
yeah. Well, and those can be scary topics, I think, too, especially
Yeah.
the investment. And when you say, "Oh, like
Yeah.
Leo's just a guy, we're gonna go have a beer," like
Yeah.
this is a
For sure. I think it's interesting because and the reason for the kind of hesitation or like tabooness around money, a few key factors, right? Like one is America is very litigious and like nobody wants to be like, oh, this is not financial advice and stuff. And there's a reason they don't teach like financial management, like personal finances and like, credits, like how that works in school because like these guys don't want to get sued as like unlicensed financial advisors or something. It's just not worth it for them. First off, second off, it's like I think it is in some from like the previous generation. I think Gen Z is just like aggressively authentic, which is very refreshing. They don't care. They'll share with you their salaries and stuff, but like before, you don't want your colleagues to know. They're like, oh, they're so nosy and stuff. So society is changing. There is more like kind of financial transparency and like people open to being like, okay, like how do I improve my financial position? And just being open to different ways.
as your door opens.
I know.
It's very
My
open.
dog walked in.
Right on cue. That
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
It was magic.
Yeah.
I love that. So as you started going into podcasting, you said you'd been doing it for 6 months now behind the microphone,
Yeah.
and this is the first one, but you talked I think you said you had
This is
another
the
one too.
second one. So the
Yeah.
first one was during COVID. It was also
Right, right.
think it was a few months, and then I was like, it felt like too much prep work.
Yeah.
And that's another thing right now. I'm just like so busy running the business, like I don't really have time to put much more than like a few minutes into the prep. Doesn't mean it's bad info. It's just like through me doing call it like 20, 30 episodes, like I really refined in what I think is good content. And the
Mm.
interesting part, if you're like starting a content or like a podcast out is like you don't really know what the audience wants. So with that, a lot of people, they get into this or like this trap of like uh analysis paralysis. They're like, oh, I should research. I should like check my 16
Yeah.
followers to see how I could segment them. No, I think you should do what resonates with you. What would you find interesting? Just start with that because you know yourself the most. And if you put out stuff that's
Mhm.
interesting to you, then that's valuable to at least one person. Then you go from there.
Mm. That's great advice. What surprised you about the podcasting, either how you have grown, or was there an aha moment of like, wow, something
Yeah.
profound in there? on your personal
Yeah,
journey?
I honestly, when I started the podcast, I didn't expect to get this much value out of guests, but I really learned so much from them because my podcast is like talking to other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, investors. So like really I get to see what's behind the scenes and like it's always valuable when you can find another professional and compare notes with them. Except that it's kind of like one way. I mean, the kind of like selfish perk as a host is like I get a one-on-one session with this person. I get to ask him or her like everything I'm curious about. Like there's this guy. He had I think it's like $35 million a year business. I'm like I'm so curious. Like, how did you build it? How did you hire out? Like, what processes did you put into place? So just like getting that opportunity and like the best part is like people want to come onto podcasts. So like there's a never ending inbound like of interesting people
Mm.
into my inbox, into whatever platform. So I get to pick who I want to spend time with. Hang on. Does Can you hear me? Fact. All
And
right.
we're back, and this is sometimes what happens with podcasting. So, Leo, you were talking about everybody wants to be a guest on a podcast, and it's so true.
Yes, yes, and I will also add that, hey, the show must go on. I think you will have glitches when you're doing these things, like with life too. So just roll with it. I think when you embody that mindset, like you'll perform much better. I think like I've seen people like when they freeze or they stutter over something, they just act like, oh shoot, like I have to retake this. Like just roll with it. If you have no option to restart, like you'll figure it out. So with that being said too, yeah, I mean there's no better time than now to be a podcast host because I mean you have just the most interesting people that want to be on podcasts because they want to market themselves, they want to create their personal brand, right? um, there's this guy on social media right now. He interviews like the millionaires and billionaires and stuff, and he says, the two common threads that people wanted, the two common skills that people want to make is to get better at AI and to build a personal brand, aka to get more leverage. So, no better time than now to start.
Hmm. Yeah, and you've talked a couple of times about honing your skills as you've been doing podcasting.
Yeah,
How were you able to do that? Did you have a mentor? Did you just go back and listen to your own things? Was it
yeah.
just you just feel better at doing this? How did that work?
Yeah, I actually don't have a mentor for this, but in business and in life, you pay for speed. So I'm okay that I'm growing slower, so to speak. Like I don't think my podcast has a lot of listeners, and like honestly, it's mostly because I don't bother to market it. I'm just having interesting conversations that I think would benefit people, but like I put zero effort into marketing, which is entirely my responsibility. But I think it is important to understand that like skills take time, just like any other muscle. Like your mental muscles are the same as your physical muscles. I'll also, I'll also say this: when I first started lifting weights, back in high school, I bought my first tub of protein, and I remember genuinely thinking to myself, like, "All right, this is it. I'm gonna look like Arnold Schwarzenegger." And like, it was nice meeting y'all because like I will look very different after this. And then like proceeding to finish that tub, I'm like, wow, that was such a scam. But then understanding, okay, I guess building muscle really does take time. It takes
Mm,
thousands or tens of thousands of repetitions. So the same thing with skills, right? There's no natural born person. They just hone that skill over thousands of repetitions, and we all spend our 24 hours differently.
hmm. Yeah, and I hear that honing the skills, repetition, we get better over time. We just keep doing it. Those are some great words to live by for sure. Whether you're behind a podcast or growing a business or doing both,
Yeah.
really.
Yep.
And when you talk about not marketing your podcast, but the content is still there. what I like to do with the podcast sometimes is just say if I'm meeting somebody that I think that this would be the conversation that could help them if they heard it, you can just you don't have to. I think what I like about this conversation too is to take away that need, that drive to get the big downloads, that
Mhm.
the to focus on the marketing. Sometimes the content itself is what's needed for the two people behind the microphone to build the connections, because in this day and age you can have well, before COVID you used to go for coffee to network, and now on LinkedIn you can maybe have like a Zoom
Yeah.
call or whatever, but why not have an interview to really get to know the person? What a great, even just for networking.
Yeah. 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 And also, uh, another thing to consider is that, to what I said earlier, these entertainment platforms, they're making
Got
so
that written
much
down.
money because they're good at keeping you on the platform, and they keep you on the platform by feeding you the right content. So the algorithms have gotten so refined at showing you what you want to see. So you being yourself, Donna, is what's going to get you the most. You're going to attract your tribe the most by being your most authentic self. So it's naturally going to flow to the right person. One person's going to like it. They're going to be a loyal listener. They're going to follow along. And then, like, one thing leads to another. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. And that authenticity, no, nobody's fingerprints are the same in this
Yeah.
world. And so why do we try so hard to be like that person or to do it like this other person? We're just so individual, and we should be celebrating that. And I love that about you. I keep hearing that theme a lot
Yeah.
from you. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think it's something that I wish I learned earlier is
Yeah.
to not just embrace who you are. Like, be unapologetically yourself. And your attempts at hiding yourself, at trying to be someone who you're not, because, like, I mean, I remember growing up, like, especially when you're in school, like, you want to fit in, right? Humans are like societal creatures. So, they want to fit into the environment. So, like, you pretend you like certain things, you dress a certain way, but then now you're like, you're empowered to do what serves you the most. Because when you help yourself the most, then you expand your cup and you can pour into more people's cups. You're an amplifier of value. I think people forget that. People assume, like, if you accumulate wealth, that you can only spend it on yourself. No, like, money's in your hand temporarily. Like, you're a steward of capital. You pass it along. You allocate it to things that you care about.
Hmm. Yeah, I like to wrap things up with speaking directly to a podcaster. Kind of felt like you just did that, but what else have we not talked about that you feel you want to bring forward in this conversation?
So, if you're, I mean, no matter where you are in your journey for podcasting, it's important to see the bigger picture, and to not have such a micro kind of ROI driven thing. And that's why corporations suck at making brands. Like, nobody wants to follow Microsoft, right? They want to follow, I don't know, Charlie D'Amelio. They're like, I mean, a lot of people like her. It's undeniable, right? As opposed to, like, some stale content. And it's funny that these corporations, these sterile corporations, they're hiring, like, these Gen Z people to, like, be unhinged and stuff. It's just a thing to be authentic. So, as long as your ROI isn't, like, driven by the quarter, like, hey, how many impressions did we get? Like, just do it and have fun with it. And, like, the best work comes from when you're having fun. So just remember that.
That's a great energy. Best work happens when you're having fun. Speaking of work, Leo, how can people get to know more about you, connect with you? Where would you like them to go? I know we have a tinyurl.com/MHP course is one way. Tell us more about that, and how to connect with you.
Yeah, yeah. So in a nutshell, what my company does, we buy and operate affordable housing. So we buy it with investors. Our investors, they're completely passive. My team does everything, soup to nuts, from buying the properties, operating them, and making money to our investors. And we also provide affordable housing to what I mentioned earlier. That's how we allocate capital to causes we care about. we don't have too many opportunities to invest because, we're very selective with the projects that we take on. But, if you want to learn more, join our investor waitlist potentially. Happy to see if it's a good fit. You can check us out at cornellcommunities.com. That's CornellCommunities.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to talk about investments, podcasting, what have you. I'm happy to be a resource where I can. You can find me at Leo Young. That's LeoYoung.
Fantastic. Yeah. And check out the podcast again, The Journey. Journey with Leo Young. Yeah. And we're loving the journey. So thank you for sharing your journey today with us. Again, if you're listening and you want more from Leo, go check him out on LinkedIn. We'll put the links in the show notes, so it'll make it very easy for you. And again, thank you for listening to our listeners. Thank you for joining us, Leo. Thank you for everyone. We'll see you again next time on Loving the Journey. Bye for now.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Hey there, it's Donna. Here's something we're thinking about. What if the reason your ideal clients are not finding you has nothing to do with your expertise and everything to do with 5 specific gaps in your online presence that you can't see yet? The Influence Scorecard was designed to show you exactly where those gaps are and what to do about them. We will review your podcast, your website, or your social media presence using the 5 tenets of influence: be seen, be heard, be easy to follow, be the solution, and be paid with purpose. And we're going to deliver a personalized review to your inbox within 48 hours. Every scorecard gets human eyes on it before it reaches you, and it's completely free. Click the link on the screen or go to 365businessmaker.com/scorecard to get started today.